Hi, welcome to another video web clip from Divination Counseling Service. I'm Colleen Schmidt, and today we're talking Tarot Part 2. So staying with our subject of Tarot, I would like today to talk about the suits of the cards and the importance of going back to the suits and how they can help us to build the story. If you would like to look at the major arcana, I welcome you to check out the website divinationcounselingservice.org and check out the articles, the pages actually that have been written about every single major arcana card. So there's an article on every card. And start maybe looking at that and seeing how they feel. A lot of my work is based on studies because I have studied, but also in particular those articles, the base outline comes from meditations that I did when I very first started working with the cards, and I kept a journal. So inviting you to do the same thing, create a tarot journal for yourself. Write your stories down. Explain your circumstances and experiences that happened, and you'll learn a whole lot. So today, I want to look more in general. I want to look at the suits of the cards. And I'm using a tarot deck here that's a Rider-Waite, okay? Because one of the things I have over the years mentioned to my students is the fact that we should really relate to the cards, the art of the cards, if you will. But as a beginner student, that sometimes it's better to begin with the more traditional, if you will, more common tarot decks. And Rider-Waite is the granddaddy. So the Rider-Waite does not appeal to everybody. Eileen Conley, by the way, has her own deck, and that's a really good one to start learning from as well. But understand that it is about the artwork, and the relationship that you have, once again, is about relationships and the relationship that you have to the cards. Now, as a person who's gone through this experience of learning myself, in the very beginning, I stuck with the Rider-Waite and traditional Hanson Roberts, things that to me seemed more traditional. They weren't calling the wands anything but wands. They weren't calling the cups anything but cups. But, and I even remember somebody buying me a Thoth Tarot, which is Aleister Crowley's Tarot, when I was really early on in my studies. And I actually did not read it for about 2 or 3 years. I did read it eventually when I came to a point in my life where I knew I had a relationship with the cards, and I was able to successfully read the Rider-Waite, the Thoth deck. I still will occasionally read from the Thoth deck. I think it's a great deck, but the artwork is more impressionistic. But so is, say, Tarot for the Spirit, a deck I really love. They're more impressionistic. The artwork is more impressionistic. It is what you relate to, what speaks to you. So, with that said, I'm going to stay traditional today. We're going to be talking about wands, pentacles, cups, and swords. They all affiliate with astrology, so I'm actually going to do that as well. If you're not an astrologer, it's still really interesting to learn little tidbits. So let's start off with Pentacle, which of course is the earth sign in astrology. They all relate to the signs. And if you think about even what an earth sign is in astrology, it's that stability factor. It's the security. It's often related to finances. That's a security. And there's this, where they don't maybe overlap as much, is the art value, because money in the case of astrology, Pentacle, is related also to art. Venus. I think you could read that way with the tarot. I tend not to. I do really keep it pure. So if I'm talking money, I'm talking money. Pentacle is support. It does not have to be financial. Support is anything from a pat on the back to that cheerleader who's got your back. Okay. So, moving on. With that said, let's move into, I just want to keep it general at first. Let's move on to wands. Fire. Their creative energy, just as they would be in astrology. Fire, creativity. Here in the Tarot, keeping it pure, the wands are not just that what excites you and motivates you, but oftentimes it's the connections you make along the way that continue to help that process, which again is all related to the wands. So think of the wands as more of a networking as well. It's the connections, because again, it's through the connections that we can keep up that wonderful excitement. We're going to move on to the swords. Air. Very mental. However, when you look at them in the cards, oftentimes that mental relates more to stress. Excitement sometimes, but stress. The swords in the cards can oftentimes have a bad rap, but I read reverse, so I have to say that, which is very unlike astrology because the air signs have a lot of wonderful things they bring to the table, particularly on that intellectual level. And I'm not saying it can't be the same with regards to the Tarot, but by the basis of how the Tarot was put together, oftentimes the swords are looked at more malefic. Yeah, they're not good always. They're really related to stress, obstacles, and things of this nature. Now, although I do agree with that, because I read reverse, I have an outlet for the more positive side of that energy. And I do call it energy because I don't think of it just as a mental. There's actually an aspect in astrology that really talks about, your brain's on fire. You're really quick. You're really wired, which also gives a sense of restlessness. So here we go. There's always that. It's true also of the cards. So I just want to say that because I think oftentimes, as I said, swords can get a bad rap. So then we come to the cups. Water. I almost said water first, but cups, water. They're filled with liquid. It's the emotional content. It's what makes us feel up or down. It's a lot of things related to emotion and of the heart. Now, I expand a little bit more. Oh, not really. I think that probably astrology and in the Tarot, the cups are where I might keep the energies the closest. It's not intentional. It's just that because the emotions play such a huge factor in how we think or react, that when you're looking at the water signs and you know that water signs are reactive, at the very least, I have a water moon, I understand. That does really apply also here to the Tarot. So emotional, how all of this is affecting you emotionally. It's really interesting. I get asked this a lot as a reader, but how can I tell the difference between something new that's happening in someone's love life or something that's happening in their work, professional life? Sure, I can based on the suits. And I have to say, I'm right most of the time. But there have been those times where it was like, the opposite. And that's when you have to ask yourself, and this is the client, is it something that is more emotional than financial, even if it is related to work? And is it hard then to separate the two? And sometimes it really is, depending on reading. So let's just once again really recap this. We're looking at 4 suits. In other decks, they may be called other things, but they always resonate back to cups, swords, pentacles, and wands. Each of those are the suits. They actually make up the original playing deck, which a lot of people will read from. They don't need a tarot deck. They can do it all without the major arcana, and they can do it all just based on what they get out of a tarot deck. So I'm going to take a moment here as we finish up and move into the next part of what I'd like to go through. I thought that today I would keep this short, the reading part. I want to show a lay every time, for one reason, just to show that you can. Because there's so many different ways of working with the cards. A card of day, I'll say that every video probably, is one of the best ways for it. So I'm just shuffling up a little bit. I have a little bit of a ritual that I actually do prior to reading for a client, whether I'm on the phone or face-to-face. I do a lot of phone readings. It works. It's hard to believe. In the very beginning, it was really hard for me to do that. But it really works, and I'm glad that I did. It's been a wonderful way for this 12th house sun to conduct your business. Okay. For our purposes today, I always start with three piles, okay, from the right to the left, opposite of how we read, by the way, because I go by the old Kabbalah, the old Hebrew system. And one of my favorite readings to do, and I actually do this as a service for clients who want yes or no's, because you can get them so well, especially when you're someone who reads the cards in right side up as well as upside down positions. So as I do this, and by the way, I test cards when I read for clients. I use the same method. This is how I pick my significators for my triad. So the first card that, by the way, just for the record, they're all a no, okay? They're all upside down, which in a very simple yes or no, which we did not ask. We're just pulling cards because I like to be able to read them for you and talk about what they mean. I think it's interesting that they all fall upside down. I think it's most interesting because a lot of readers do not read upside down. So perhaps on a subconscious level, I'm pushing for everyone to read with the cards, whether they're right side up or upside down, because it gives you more options for the shuffling feature. So the first card that I'm looking at is upside down, Six of Swords. And we talked about, what does the sword mean? The sword is a mental card. Upside down, not good. It's a storm, okay? And it's a storm whether it be here or here. But let's talk about, what does it mean to work reverse? Okay, here we have a storm. Maybe very difficult for you to see the light at the end of the tunnel because there's a storm going on. All that stress. Look at these swords, these people sitting in the boat, not happy, very stressed out. But here in the upside down position, this card actually has a better meaning. It means there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That, yeah, you're in a storm right now, but perhaps very soon you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. And again, I might be quoting Eileen Conley. For some reason, she puts these little sayings with the cards, and even though this is some 40 years later, I'm still applying the same terminology. But in any event, it accurately does tell the story here of a storm, but where there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's a really good use of an upside down. Another card that's upside down. It's beauty. Now let's apply it as a person, but let's apply it also as something else, because I always feel that the court cards mean just a little bit more than a person. But I'm not going to downplay the importance that they could be, and oftentimes are, talking about people. So here we have somebody who obviously doesn't deal in reality, because we're dealing again with a cup. The concept of cup is an emotional card. So on an emotional level, this person doesn't deal with reality. Well, I often call this the non-committal card because here's somebody, male, female, business. I think businesses do this a lot. It's called sales. it's not true. It's not possible. Okay? And so their tendency is not to deal in reality, but propaganda, promises that can't come true or don't come true. So if we took that same card and we looked at it right side up, we would be looking at a man, cups, very much in control of the emotions, probably a good caretaker, maybe a good father, certainly would be somebody close to the querent. So whoever's asking the question, this person would definitely have a very caring concern about them. Upside down does not lessen the concern. No. It just means that it's unrealistic. It also can mean that there could be a drug or alcohol problem with an individual that causes this. And this can be true of prescribed drugs. He shows up here for us, upside down. So here we go, light at the end of the tunnel about a non-committal issue or a person who doesn't deal in reality. And then we come to another upside down card. I'm really happy that they all have shown different suits though, so we can apply the suit immediately. Here we have a wand. So we know this is a woman who can be very outgoing. She's probably very attractive. And that could be true, believe it or not, whether she's upside down or right side up. Where here she's more of a salesman and a cheerleader. And I would believe her support would be extremely positive. Here in the upside down position, I would think the opposite. I would think that she might be saying something that could be very upsetting. So there could be things said by a woman that's very upsetting that could be dealing with the gentleman who's not dealing with reality that brings about a light at the end of the tunnel. That's a possibility. Now, if I were to say that this woman, this cheerleader woman, as a scenario or a situation, I would still only see her as a faulty support. In other words, a failing support system, or you thought she was supporting, but maybe you're finding out that she's fibbing, or she's lying, or somebody, something is lying too. Because remember now, wands are your connections. It's also that ability to network, if you will. The wands are more enterprising. So when you see a female upside down entity, it could even be a company that here again is not telling the truth. Okay, so be mindful that the wands, because they are so charming, because it is a networking card, doesn't always mean that what we're getting is the truth. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you learned something, and I hope most importantly that this makes you excited about working with the cards. Once again, as always, check out divinationcounselingservice.org or my name, Colleen Schmidt, on YouTube, depending on which venue you choose. Take care, and until next time.